darling.
Hello. Ooh. Hello, ladies.
Okay. Oh no, everybody's stuck for me.
You're stuck. Okay. As if I could do it.
The 13th, yes. Making my note.
Mm-hmm. Working now?
Hello. Yes,
Hello.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
yeah. The thing's a little laggy. I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi today. I don't know what's going on with my life today. Okay.
Everything's laggy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Everything's a little laggy.
Shit's
Heard.
just
Better.
This seems pretty stable now.
Yeah, I think it's good. I just needed a second to settle.
We all need a second.
I know. I like drove all the way, which isn't very far, to my favorite place because I really wanted Italian food today. And then I got there, they're like, oh, hey. They're like, you placed an order? I'm like, yeah. He was like, oh, okay. He's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yes, I did. He's like, no, you didn't. I'm like,
yeah, I did.
like, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
And then he's like, what number? He goes, did you DoorDash it? And like, get it delivered to yourself in accident? I'm like, no, I called. Like, I called you guys. And he was like, what number did you call?
Fair enough.
Mystery solved.
Did you get your food?
I did, because I was like, if it was, because I had no idea where I ordered after that. I was like, I don't know where I ordered.
Oh my God.
So I looked them up. I don't know how I ordered from them. So I looked them up and I was like, oh, they were like an hour away. Because he goes,
What?
If it's far, come back in. It'll take like 20 minutes. He goes, it'll take like 10 minutes. I'll get it to you. Because I go there all the time.
Oh, Raina.
But then I called and it was only like 15 minutes. So I was like, that's effed up. I can't like call them and be like, I'm not going to get it. I just felt bad about that. So I was like, normally 15 minutes, if I wasn't on a time crunch, would have been like whatever to me to go get food I want. But I was like, this is not in my allotted time. This is on my schedule. Yeah. I have my food, so occasionally I'll be eating.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope that you please stuff your face.
No,
like,
I am.
Yeah, good. How are you doing today, Q? What's new, Q?
Really good. I just came up from Marietta, Georgia, a few hours ago. Did a lot of exploring. I did a lot of walking. I did a lot of marveling and brunching and laughing and lots of good stuff. And I'm happy to be home. And that was me this weekend. I'm ready to get home, and I don't know, I'm feeling just really riding on the heels of our very powerful conversation on Friday. And actually feeling the desire for deadlines and targets, a desire for it.
That's excellent.
Yeah. that is also new.
Mhm.
That is new. I haven't felt like that in a long time.
Well, that's cause for celebration.
Yeah, for sure. That's me. What about you, Raina?
Mysterious woman.
So, I feel like I don't even know what happened this weekend. I feel like last week was a lot of like me because I was off home from vacation finally. Like I'd been away for like almost 3 weeks. So I kind of just like it was nice to get back into my routine, honestly. Like I was just like went to the gym, went to see the chiropractor, like went to the doctor, like just doing my life stuff felt really good this week. And then this weekend I was like pretty much it. Like I laid pretty low. I did take my first swimming lesson today, which I'm really proud of myself because I think I did really well.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
If I didn't do really well, who knows? But that's why I think I already like her because she made me feel like I did a good job. And that works for me.
She's a good teacher.
So I was like, I feel like I did a good job. So we're off to a good start, you and I.
That's amazing.
Yes, because I need to learn how to swim. I
Oh
like
yeah.
make it work, but I can't really swim. So I'm ready to learn how to really swim. So yeah,
That's
that was
exciting.
yeah, it was a lot more pleasant than I thought too, because I have like I think I don't have a fear of water, and then when I was there, all of a sudden I was like, ooh, and I was like, I forgot I do kind of have this like fear of like more my head being in the water.
Sure.
So it was nice to like by the end of it feel like, oh, okay, like I actually can feel my body was just much more relaxed doing it, and I was like, okay, cool, like this I actually can see myself like picking this up pretty like at least feeling really comfortable. If all I get out of that class is just to like feel really comfortable anytime I'm like in the ocean, like or in a pool that's a little deeper than I'm comfortable with, like if I just feel comfortable, I'll be happy. So
Oh God, yeah.
yeah.
That's huge. I was Q knows this. I was just telling her the other week I was deathly afraid of water as a child, even in the bathtub. I wore like a full-on mask and snorkel and like washcloths and just screamed the entire time. Like I was terrified of water. And my stepmom um put me tricked me like, oh, we're going somewhere, and it's this Olympic size 11-foot deep pool. She dropped, like instructor had to pull me off of her, and but after a while I was like, I couldn't get out. You couldn't get me out of the pool and swim, getting those rings on the bottom, diving down, all that stuff. And so I totally feel you. If it's just like, if I'm just, more comfortable, that's huge. That's huge.
Yes. It should be good. You know what's crazy is like I do all these things that I love that are on the water. Like I took a bunch of sailing lessons and I just like it's not good. I kind of just like lie on the paperwork. Because I'm like, I'm sure everybody else can swim. Nobody else is doing probably writing like
Yeah,
sure
if
I
it came
can
down
take
to it, they'd save you.
like that's what I'm like.
Yeah.
So like, and I was on a crew team off in college.
Oh
That
yeah,
boat tipped over.
totally.
I would have been relying on everybody else. So I was like, okay, we're gonna like put an end to that.
There's a metaphor in there somewhere.
Somewhere. I trust my community. That's what
Yeah.
I can come up with is like, I trust the people around me, clearly.
Hey, it's better than the
Yeah.
alternative. And
So you want to really quick, like when I was in high school, I always believe I can do stuff. I'm always like, yeah, I could like do that. Like it might be hard, I might not be the best, but I can do stuff. So especially when I was young, like around high school and college, it really kind of like kicked in. So when I would join a lot of things, like I was like, I played volleyball, I played basketball. That's how I learned how to play golf. Like I would just like join sports. I tried cheerleading. Like I would just do stuff and join clubs. And so I told my mom one day, I was like, yeah, I'm going to join the swim team. And she started laughing. And I'm like, what are you laughing
Oh.
at? And she's like, Raina, you can't swim. And I was like, I think I can swim, kind of. And she's like, no, you cannot. You can. And she just was like, no, you cannot swim. No. And I was like, well, and I just felt like she was like discouraging me from doing something I wanted to do. And I was like, yes, I can. I'm going to join the swim team. Nope. Got there, couldn't swim, became the manager.
Oh, hey, see that last bit right there.
Became the manager. They're like, you want to be the manager? I was like, yeah, that sounds much better.
There you go. You still part of the team?
Yeah, I was part of
Still
the
part of
team.
the team.
I was really,
Yeah.
technically was the goal.
That'd be like me being like, I think I'm gonna go out for basketball this year. I'm
Serious?
4'11", by the way, okay, Raina, if you didn't know.
Oh, are you?
I'm 4'11". Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize
Yeah.
you were
I
so
am
short.
extremely short, so it would be like I would have to be on par with, it'd have to be like a Prince moment, you know what I mean? It'd have to be, and that's not gonna happen.
That would be hysterical. You're like, I could do
Yes.
it.
Yeah. A lot of faith. Well, I'm glad that for the most part, it seems like you guys had a really, at least, evenly keeled week.
Mhm.
That's lovely. Well, I will go ahead and, as usual, tell you about the ideal structure I mapped out for today, and then we'll see what happens. I have, so today's class is on the laws of karma. And so I have a lecture portion, of course. But I would really like to leave some room, for two things. One, for, a little bit of feedback and discussion on the laser beam exercise, if anyone tried it. Maybe a couple of things I might add or say around that can kind of add some context and oomph to it. And then maybe just a bit on aura and the telling, specifically because I know that Raina has, or is in the process of completing, I think, from what I understand, one of the aura from one of the previous weeks. So I'm curious about that. Yeah, so here's the thing. I'm talking about karma today. When it comes to gigantic subjects like karma, for example, I had to make some pretty decisive choices in terms of how exactly I wanted to organize the information for you. And ultimately, I'm looking for something just, ultimately I elected to focus more on subject matter that is more or less directly related to multidimensional living and more of a personal experience, as opposed to going into karma in the same way or in a similar way as I did in lecture 3 when I talked about the holy human form and detailed things about old Saturn, old moon, old sun, etc. So there's more of the objective kind of systematic material that is provided in anthroposophy as about karma, and then there are things that tend to fall more under the category of, by knowing the details of how karma affects me in a very perceivable way in my everyday life and in certain constituents about my life and all human beings' life, my perception of life and the way I live it is thus transformed. So I elected with that option. Yeah, so, and any last words before we dive in? No? Okay. All righty. Well, I'd like to begin our talk today on the subject of something that is probably the most universal, commonly shared experience, which is pain and suffering. So
Yay.
I thought I would really like charm you guys with this opener. So glad you're having a good day.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, but it's a beautifying and rectifying opener about pain and suffering, right? So it's not only natural, it's quite understandable, especially in the first half of the human being's life, for there to be an inward kind of rebelling against pain and suffering. And I would very much include physical pain in this, by the way. Okay. And I'm sure we can all recall at least a time or two when we were growing up. We poked and prodded a bit philosophically about why pain had to be there in our lives. Why can't, at least the majority of the time, life just be and feel the way I want it to be? Why do I have to be in this pain, whatever way that it's presenting itself? Why does there seemingly have to be pain and suffering in this life, right? Perfectly valid question. So we're going to talk about the underlying reasons for pain and suffering as an introduction to the laws of karma. And I'm going to illustrate this with a hypothetical example that unfortunately, Q's already heard, but it'll be a refresher. Sorry, I don't particularly enjoy repeating myself, but we're going to do it. All right, so in this
Just
hypothetical,
one quick projection.
yeah,
The way my ADD is set up, the repetition's actually pretty good for me.
well, hell yeah,
Well, let's go.
perfect. I love it. You probably won't even remember it either. Said it in passing, so. Okay, so we've got this hypothetical example here of a young man, and his father was very wealthy. Okay, and so, you know, for let's say until he was 21 years old, okay, he was essentially, he did not have to work. In just about every sense of the word, was provided for. But then something happened when he turned 21. His father became gravely ill. There was a complete and essentially total destruction of the family wealth. And suddenly now he has to go out and find a way to support himself and make money and do all these things that prompt him to feel betrayed by life and angry and painful because of how inadequate and ashamed he feels in relation to this now necessity that he must do to survive. And so he, despite all of those things, dedicates himself to finding, a suitable career for himself and providing for himself. He eventually settles down and gets married and contributes to the well-being of his family. And when he is, say, 50 years old, he looks back at that 21st year of life and everything that transpired from that moment on, and he realizes that if it were not for that situation, that circumstance that set all of that in motion, And if it were not for all of the pain and suffering that came as a natural consequence of that catalyst, practically life as he know it and himself as he is now at 50 years old would not exist. He would not have his family very likely. He would not have the wisdom and the appreciation for life that he has. You're probably at this point catching my drift. So basically, the pain transformed his shortcomings into positive abilities, right? And so if you want to really just pop a little pin in one of these first kind of entry points into the laws of karma, is that that is, in fact, an essential law, is that it's not only or merely that pain transforms our shortcomings into positive abilities. It's quite literally that our shortcomings seek out painful experiences in order that whatever is imperfect or immature or in a state of deficit or devolution can be rectified through that experience, can be transformed. So in his case, his lack of maturity could be transformed to maturity through this experience. So by far, the greater part of our pain and suffering in our lives, you're gonna have to bear with me a little bit, because about 3 weeks ago, I decided to completely switch up my handwriting, and it's been great. I can read it better, but these notes prior to that, so bear with me. So the greater part of our pain and suffering in life, okay, is brought from our previous incarnations. And we're going to kind of segue into a bigger and broader and hopefully more comprehensive view of that. But I'm just going to keep kind of combining things, right? There is a wiser being within all of us. The I that we know ourselves to be, who we know ourselves to be, this is not that wiser being. This wiser being is entirely unconscious. You, if you prefer, can call it your higher self. This wiser being is more powerful and instrumental in the shape that your life takes than your conscious self, okay? And this wiser being, I'm going to be completely honest with you and tell you the truth of this law of karma. This wiser being elects, chooses purposefully the path of pain and suffering. By doing so, it kindles us, right, in what appears to be a kind of magic power. Put my phone on do not disturb. That seeks essentially painful experiences without knowing it. Okay, why? Well, we can harken back to the things that I just mentioned in terms of the hypothetical example with the young man. But these things are very difficult to really come to terms with when they're just sound waves or you're just reading them in a book. These are the kinds of things that are meant to be contemplated, for example, in a state of meditation. by just taking a few moments to completely divorce yourself from the outside world and to really sit with the fact that all the pain and suffering that you have felt, will feel, or are feeling, or will ever feel is, one, divinely orchestrated, but also serves a wondrous and benefic and nourishing purpose. It is purposeful. There will never be a situation in your life where you are encountering a painful experience or that you are suffering and there is no higher reason for it. This should ease your heart. This should not scare you. This should ease your heart. But it's difficult for that to really happen if you don't take a moment outside of your usual events and sit with that. And just sit with that. I'm going to see if there's anything else on this note for a second. A final note. If you look out into the world, and you can clearly see that there is a lot of pain and suffering. But the more that you allow yourself to come to terms with, and you pay attention, and you seek to embrace whatever opportunity for transformation and growth that pain and suffering is inviting you into, you start to look out into the world and not see pain and suffering, but you see in a very truthful and visceral way how at the same time the world is absolutely teeming with wisdom because of this. And your opportunity to be saturated and embedded, which is a word I'm going to use very often throughout the rest of this lecture, because it's extremely important, but embedded in that wisdom increases exponentially to the degree that you can accept this as a law of this cosmos. On the other side of the coin, and I have talked about this again a time or two, but not within the context of karma primarily. And that is essentially the opposite end of the coin, joy and happiness, right? It's got pain and suffering. We're getting why that exists. But then there's this other side of life, joy and happiness. Here is the thing. It is also a law of karma that we are not the ones who give those feelings to ourselves. Okay. This, I know, sounds probably 101% antithetical to the kind of messaging with a positive impetus behind it and genuine intentions that we've all been brought up with or experienced in some way, been exposed to, where, again, this idea of manifestation, the idea that in terms of things that bring you joy and happiness in life are there for you to manifest, for you to bring those. And that's point A, point B, okay? Or the idea that when something good happens to you, it's because you did something to deserve it. Both of these things are not only just simply not the truth, But they're also, the more that you buy into them, the more that you agree with them, the more that you align your thought and thought action with this falsehood, the more it essentially spiritually degrades you, to be quite frank, because it is in such an utter, the distance between the observation of the truth is greater and greater the more that a person does this. So let's talk about this a little bit more, because it on the surface can come across as a kind of pessimistic thing that I am saying, that and that anthroposophists and before and before and before, but it's really not at all. It is a fact that the joys and the happiness that we experience are the result of being bestowed upon us by the spiritual hierarchies, by higher beings. It is a result, it is a reflection, it is a consequence of being deeply embedded within the body, very literally, and the mind, very literally, of those beings and of the cosmos at large. You see, joy and happiness are very powerful, but one defining feature of the kind of power that they have, especially at this time in humanity, where we are in the most dense, materialized point in the cycle of humanity and the earth, is that it has an extinguishing power. It extinguishes something. And so a way that I can illustrate this is by Faust by Goethe, in which I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but it's something to the effect of, when I obtain my desire, I'm suddenly parched. As in, and there are a million different iterations of, you get something you want, there's a rush of happiness, we'll call it, and it extinguishes, if even temporarily for a time, your connection to your true self, because so much of the locus of your attention, which is essentially the essence of your life, is placed on the provenance of obtaining that desire. So they are essentially, joy and happiness are essentially grace. And the more, the better. I am in no way, and neither was Steiner, in no way encouraging anything that remotely resembles asceticism or purposefully avoiding joyful or happy, happiness inducing experiences. Quite the contrary. Quite the contrary. That is not at all the point that I'm trying to make. We actually do, there is a wonderful reason why we even have the capacity to experience what we're labeling here joy and happiness. Because through those experiences, if we consider them truthfully as they are, as grace, we develop something very important. And it's essentially the feeling that does not come and go, that only builds and strengthens over time, of being blissfully embedded, keyword, embedded in the divine forces and powers of the world. So I mean, really, when joy and happiness arise, you can quite literally think of these, if you want to just lump them together for right now, call them angels, call it the cosmos, these higher powers, the heavens, are in some way descending upon you. You see, you are receiving something. You are receiving, and the more that you understand that that is the relationship, that is what's happening, that's what's taking place, the more that you get to hold that. You don't ever get to hold that within you if you believe that you are the originator of those feelings. That's just simply not how the law of karma dictates. Pretty big reframe. It takes practice. It takes practice to do this. It feels very weird at times, but you will discover that there are hidden pockets of shame that you didn't know that you were carrying relative to success, joy, happiness in your life, because the cognitive dissonance was so great, most likely, that there was no place for these things to really show themselves in the fore of your conscious mind. But for every single person who, to any degree, buys into the idea that they are the provenance of their own joy and happiness, there is some shame that goes along with that. And so for some people, it is particularly obvious. It is particularly obvious how uncomfortable they feel receiving praise, how even when something good happens to them, they can never enjoy it or accept it, you know. And that's why it's important to circulate this information. At the end of the day, we're essentially looking for a tranquil acceptance of joy and happiness. That's the goal, and also the result, I would say. It's just a tranquil acceptance of these things, because there really is only one logical, and I mean logical, I do mean that quite deliberately, logical way to respond to joy and happiness, and that is with gratitude, because it is literally by law bestowed upon you by the spiritual hierarchies. So the only really logical, truthful response to that is gratitude. The different shades and tones that the person can intimately, develop within their own being. But at the end of the day, it's gratitude. So may joy and happiness be a sign of how closely the gods have approached us, in other words. And may the pain and suffering be a sign of how far away we are in terms of where we could be. It's sometimes, I'm trying to lean into the things that are more simple. Because, karma is a manifold and intricate realm, whereby there, at a certain point, and we're about to get to this point in just a second, even the most advanced occult scientists, they all come back with there's a certain point where only generalities can be made. And the reasons for that are, up for grabs if you really want to dig into that. That the reasons for that are complex in and of themselves, but it is an unbelievably complex process. But there are some things that I think that for most people are 100% in one conversation able to be comprehended and seen in real time, like the next day, the next hour, where you're like, holy shit. So let's make this a little more real. All right. So one thing I'm going to tell you pretty quickly. First 7 years of a human being's life. This is essentially what is inherited from, like, literally, this is the product of heredity, which is the actual meaning of original sin. Before the fall, which was a direct result of how humanity handled or didn't handle quite well the influence over time of Luciferic and Ahrimanic forces. Before that, man, as a being of the earth, could create for himself a body, to be on the earth. But it's a different topic. First 7 years of a person's life, this is why there's a change of teeth, right? So this first set of teeth and the entire being, the body, everything, is from the parents and so on and so forth. Mostly from the parents. But what happens after that is completely different. Past that point, until about 30, basically. Now that human being is pulling in what they essentially agreed, and with the assistance of the hierarchies, decided to bring into their experience from the spiritual world. So that's why, for example, one thing you'll see quite often is that around the age of, 7, 8, 9, some children will get really, really sick. Really sick. And a lot of times be stricken with some sort of illness that they'll slap some sort of label on it, but they don't really understand what it is. I, for example, was one of these children. And it's because it's symptomatic of the inward conflict that's going on between essentially what was inherited from the parents and what this being is bringing with them into their life, into their form, into their experience, karmically, from the spiritual world, which has a whole lot to do with what they were doing in previous incarnations, right? This is also another reason why sometimes you'll notice that around that same age or a little further past it, children will just suddenly start, not all of them, but some of them, they don't really look like either of their parents anymore. Like the parents will go like, they didn't get that from me. Like, they didn't get that from me. Or they'll start acting very, very differently. And that's because this process is taking place, right? So that's that. What I want to talk to you about is what happens when a human being turns 30. So When you hit middle age, which in anthroposophy begins at 30, that increasing line becomes a descending line. And what we're actually descending into from 30 onwards is truly further into matter. As a matter of fact, it's during this point that we are, I'm going to word it differently than the way I wrote it here. Well, we're living most intensely on the physical plane. So, I've, descending into matter, I've made that clear. But the forces that comprised our life prior to this were, again, brought from the spiritual world, from past incarnations. But you can say they were drawn out of previous existences, okay? But around the midpoint of a human being's life, those forces are now expressed outside of that person in the physical plane. And the primary task becomes using that to fashion our lives. And the life, the wisdom, the content, we'll call it, prior to this point is what is sent back to the spiritual world. And it's essentially what you take with you for the most part into the next lifetime. So the forces, again, the forces that we were using to live and create our life before the age of 30 essentially are used up by 30. It's emblematic of passing a training period. At this point, ideally, whether you would proclaim this and shout it from the mountaintops, you're pretty committed to life. Like, you've come to terms with the fact that you are a human being, you are here, and you have to make something of your life, right? You become primarily occupied with arranging the environment, the constituents, all the factors of your life through the faculties, of reason, and at this time, what is most active in a human being is alien to the spiritual world. So at this point in a human being's life, we are actually the farthest removed from the reality of spirit. Now, I want to emphasize that word, the reality of spirit. That does not mean that you are any less spiritual, any less connected. I am simply saying that at this point in your life, as you know it, is the furthest away from the reality of the spiritual world. Because you are the most material, you are the most aware, concerned, and dedicated to the material, physical world during this time, which is alien or antithetical to the way that the spiritual world operates. On that note, the people that we meet during that time, the people that you meet when you are in your 30s, we'll leave it at that for right now, especially the year you turn 30. You meet someone under significant circumstances, okay? Whether it's through love or hate, or having to come together to accomplish something, if it is significant, in the 90th percentile of the time, there are always exceptions. That is, you are meeting someone who was previously your parent in a past life. Hi Q. I'm turning 30, and so it's like, that's pretty cool. On the other side, the people that you meet in your childhood, okay, so your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your friends, significant people, those are, in the 90th percentile of the time, the people that you met when you were in your midlife, around your 30s, in your previous lifetime. This is the law, folks. Again, there are exceptions to the rule, but they are pretty minor with these things. I wish you could see this atrociousness that I am trying to read right now. What the fuck? Was I drunk when I wrote this lecture? I wasn't. I had to step up my handwriting game because it's insane. I should have been a doctor. I write like one. What does it say? It could have been the most key point. Cannot be something in. Maybe I'll move on. Maybe it'll come. I have no idea what that word is.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you say again? Because I went to write it and then I was like, that got all jumbled up somehow. The people you knew in your younger life are just the people that were like in your worlds around your 30s and your previous? Is that, and I understand
Significant. So
they were significant. Okay.
Yeah, they were most likely so yeah, you're asking about the people in childhood, right? The people,
Yes.
so your parents and your brothers and your sisters,
Yeah.
right? So those are people that were significant to you in some way that you met for the first time in the middle of your life in a previous incarnation. So for a lot of times it's like spouse, a very close friend, an arch nemesis, someone who might have killed you before. I'm being completely honest. You know, things to consider. It was crazy back in the day. It's crazy today. It's just been cray.
There's definitely people that I know probably.
You're like,
Have been
everybody's
brought back to
like,
test me.
this son of a bitch killed me. Like,
I have a sibling who probably definitely attempted to kill me in a
They tried
past
to
life.
take me around too. Thinking about Kevin, who pushed me off the balcony onto someone's dumped furniture underneath the balcony.
oh
Yeah,
my God.
motherfucker.
I will tell you, I already wrote down in my planner. I have a planner that's specifically for once we're settled in our move. It's like, oh yeah, now I can really do it. I can really, as if I'm not doing like 50 million things already. But I want to do like just 1 2-day workshop lecture thing on karma. Like, I mean, really, really go into this stuff, and help people basically clear up a lot of the questions about past life regression, past lives, how to discern the karmic relationships, what that actually looks like, because it's extremely important. I mean, it's one of the most important things of a human being's life, period. It cannot be overstated, the importance of obtaining that kind of information and being, prepared and primed in a way so that you're not, deluded or putting too much of your opinion, like, oh, I don't really like this person. I don't really like the thought that they were my mom or whatever, you know, it's easy for that to creep in. Anyway. Okay. And so lastly, closing out cycles of life. So, towards the latter years of life, and I would put this mid 40s on, because Steiner and Carl Jung did disagree fundamentally on some things, but then there are some things that they did agree on, one of which is something to the effect of that human beings aren't actually anywhere near adulthood until they're at least 40. So there's that. Y'all learning from a baby. Just a little baby with a podium. Anyway, those years. So it's actually a pretty interesting thing that happens. And it kind of falls into two categories. Significant relationships that are formed from mid 40s on are either people that you have for sure been in relationship with and you have met in a previous incarnation, and you are essentially it's extremely important that you reconcile or rectify whatever karma needs to be balanced between that relationship. But if you're meeting someone significant during this time, we can talk about what significant really means. There's a huge possibility that the karma that needs to be reconciled between you and this person cannot be completed in one lifetime. Because if you're meeting them at the end of your life, and I mean, it's like a very significant, it's got to be very significant relationship. Okay. So think about, for example, people's, their spouse dies, early or something, and they remarry in their 60s or something. Okay. Situations like this. Okay. They cannot reconcile the entirety of that karma in one lifetime because they had to reach a certain level of maturity to even begin it in this one. Does that make sense? Yeah. On the other hand, this is a pretty cool thing about the law of karma. On the other hand, if you meet someone incredibly significant at this point in your life, there is also a good chance that this is someone that you are meeting for the very first time, that you have not known before, ever. So you got two of those kind of potentialities. Think on that for a hot minute. I'm going to run to the restroom. I'll be right back. I am a completely different person in terms of how I want to explain these things, which is actually quite hilarious moment I'm having privately to myself. All right. Essentially what I want to really define very clearly is, what do we actually take with us into the spiritual world? Like, what becomes karmically viable, right? To where when you accrue wisdom, you gain experience that carries over into each lifetime. What is that actually? What is that comprised of? Well, I'll tell you what it's not comprised of. It is not at all comprised of ideas or concepts. For example, Einstein, Plato, he ain't taking that brain into the next incarnation. Sorry. All those great ideas, they contained in that one life, right? So what a human being actually does take with them as credit karmic credit, we'll call it, is the volitional soul power. Okay. It is not the ideas, the concepts, the things that you learned, because all of that is essentially, no matter which way you slice and dice it, inextricable from one's personal experience. So when you think about what objectively is left, when you pare away the subjective experience that catalyzed the ability to obtain something that could be taken into a next life, you're essentially talking about a kind of power, a kind of strength. I would even throw out the word fortitude. Okay. And I'm going to basically illustrate this with some examples in terms of how people, well, I'll save the preface. I'll just put it to you like this. So, thankfully, this part I typed up on Google Docs, so we're in there. Yes. Woo. All right. So, let's suppose, I'm going to give you lots of different examples. Okay, let's suppose that there's a person and they have just pretty much no interest in the physical world, no interest in nature. They're really only kind of concerned with what restaurants are good to eat at and what things are on TV, but they're pretty self-contained, right? You know? Only really concerned with the things that immediately concern their bodily life. There's another way of put it here. But their soul remains poor. They are essentially refusing to allow the world to imprint on them. There are people like this, for sure. Okay, this is not too hard to imagine. Okay. And this person carries in him very little of, in his inner experience, inner life, of what has radiated towards him from the phenomena of the world. Okay? Important. So, when this person passes through the gate of death, when it dies, and goes to the place between death and birth, this person will find it very difficult to interact at a minimum with the spiritual beings that are necessary to evolve. Okay? Very difficult to interact with these. In consequence, he brings into the spiritual world in his soul not strength, but feebleness. Okay? A kind of essentially powerlessness. Okay, so, and I go way into detail and build an example, but so basically, when he incarnates next, what do you think his body will be like? He will have a frail, sickly body that is prone, especially prone to disease. Conversely, human beings that you see that are just bursting with health. I mean, these people who are like just radiating health. They're hiking and they're glowing and those are people who in previous incarnations really took notice of the beauty of the physical world, and not just nature. I mean, really allowed the world to imprint on them and move them, to touch them on a soul level. And that strengthened their soul, which then shows in the strength of their body. Here's another example. Preface, painting has existed for a long time. Okay, I think we can all, before Picasso, there was painting existed for a long time. Okay, making sure. So, painting, art, but especially painting. And that has more to do with Steiner's philosophy on different mediums of art and why that is, and et cetera, but yeah, painting. People who in previous incarnations really either enjoyed the act of painting or really appreciated the art of painting and therefore beauty, those people will very much tend to have a very pleasant facial structure. People who in previous incarnations had a really like obtuse and phlegmatic indifference to art and beauty will very much tend to have an unpleasing facial structure. It goes further. For people who in previous incarnations or today, you see how this is always, the wheel's still turning, who never really concern themselves with looking up at the stars, understanding the cosmos, even to the very physical, sensory ability to point out, that's Leo, the constellations, but also everything that is implied with a curiosity about the interconnectedness and the divine order of the cosmos, right? Those people subsequently will be born in an earth life with a body that is in some ways indolent or like lazy, and if via the laws of karma, they inherit from their parents a body for the first 7 years of their life that is strong and has a lot of vigor. You see how balance works there. Well, more often than not, most likely, once that time frame is over and they start taking from the spiritual world what we just talked about here and building their own life with it, their body will become lacking in energy and vigor, and probably like flabby would be a word I would use. So you can see how this, I'm talking about in some ways surface or even superficial things, which as you can clearly see are not superficial at all. But this goes even further when you think about things like health conditions and why they arise and in some ways are inevitable for certain people at a certain age. I'll give you one last example. People who have absolutely no interest in music. First of all, fucking terrifying. That's weird. They gonna be born with some sort of asthmatic issue. Or some sort of disease of the lungs. So, in other words, it is an actual fact that the quality of soul which develops in one earth life through the interest that we take in the visible world, comes to be expressed in our next life in the general bodily disposition and within the context of health and illness. And so somebody could very easily be like, well, that doesn't make me too excited about like my next life. And like now I'm thinking so hard about like, oh my God. But here's the thing, that's only one perspective, the human being incarnate on earth. And the period between death and birth is much longer than a human being's life. Just something to consider in terms of, you need not worry or think too much about these things, you know, hearing these things. And this is, I'm wrapping it up. I have a couple more points to make and then we talk. I want to end on something that I think is the most important thing that I could say to you tonight. It's another one of those, like, the new age has fucked up a lot of people's understanding of this shit, and I'm here to bust some balls, basically. And before that, or to start out with, there is no contradiction between freedom and karma. Okay, it goes like this, basically. If you were to build a house, and then when you finish building that house, you pointed at it and said, oh my God, like, the fact that I now have to move into this house is putting a huge damper on my freedom. As opposed to looking at the house and being like, well, I understand why I built this house with this material in this neighborhood, and I'm going to be as free as possible while I'm living in this house. The house is a metaphor for karma. And initiates know, going on the path of initiation, you start to understand the things that you have set up for yourself, the house that you have built for yourself from the previous lifetime. And you by moving in to that house that you built for yourself, by embracing the karma, that is the freest that you can be. Right. So I say that because I think that there's a lot of, I don't even think, I see on forums and things, a lot of discourse about these contradictions with freedom and karma. And it's, is whether or not you're aware of it or not, you living in that house. Yeah. You can't escape it. So there's really no, you can be freer, you can have more freedom if you're aware of it, but you're not any less free by not being aware of it. Okay, so the important thing here that I'm amping up a bit or a lot is and we're back to handwritten notes. How to know your higher self. I'll put it to you real straight. Here is what people think. This is how you get to know your higher self. Number one, introspection. Wrong, impossible, can't do it. No, that is not how this works. Everything inside of you is still relegated through the context of the mirror experience of what you are experiencing through the lens of your personal experience on Earth. So the only way that you can get to know this wiser being, your higher self, the only way is by getting to know the worlds in which this higher self is embedded. For example, studying how the Earth evolved, especially old Saturn, really diving deep into that. Let me ask you a question. Can you really know a person if you know nothing about where they live, what they've been through, how they evolved as a person, how they changed as a person, what they're made of, literally and figuratively? Do you think that you could just meet somebody and then meditate and suddenly meditate on them and understand them or know them? Or do you have to actually get to know them by learning where they grew up, what kind of food they ate, what kinds of pain have they been through, how have they evolved as a person? The same is true for your higher self. That is the most important thing about anthroposophy. By learning and bringing in to our understanding about these higher worlds, those beings from higher worlds can then reach you. They can teach you. They can impart to you. They cannot do that if you have no foundational, no working knowledge of the worlds that they are embedded in, what they are made of. There is no foundation to have a conversation. You physically cannot know one another until you have something to put a modicum of transference of information on. This includes your higher self. Also, the very things that are uncomfortable to learn, and by uncomfortable, honestly, I really mean challenging, not easy. Those are the things that really lead to self-knowledge. And when I say self-knowledge, I mean self-knowledge. There has to be, this is why it's spiritual science. How would you explain your dimensional experience to a sheet of paper? Does that sheet of paper know anything about dimensions at all? There is no conversation to be had. There's no presence to be aware of because there is no awareness at all. So a lot of times, who people think that they're talking to when it's their higher self, I'm not saying it's some goblin or something, but they are in some, it's not. It's not the innermost core of your being. The truest form of yourself is so beyond what is mirrored to you in your experience being here on the physical plane, that you literally have to learn about planes and worlds that operate entirely differently than ours, even though it's very, very hard to understand and wrap your head around, and you have to read it multiple times. But it's only by this that a conversation can be had and you can get to know and understand and have a relationship with your higher self. I'm gonna have a contest. I'm gonna take pictures. If anybody can tell me what the fuck I wrote down, I'll figure out something to send you in the mail. But that completes the lecture portion, essentially. There's some other things I wanted to throw in there, but I think I'll fit them in somewhere else.
So I'm just like looking at, like, I made a note, and maybe I need to like reread my notes a little better. But one of the things I wrote at some point, like kind of to ask, is like, so I guess going back to the beginning. So the idea of like deservingness and worthiness are just almost not real.
That's a great question. That's a great question. So, and I like the way you asked it too. You're like, are they just not real? You know, within the context of what you're saying. It's kind of one of those yes and no things. They're real because we make them real. And the fact that we even have this internal dialogue as to whether or not we deserve things or are worthy in the most, you know, base sense of the word when it comes to worthy. Okay. Because anyway, just for now, is, you know, a huge glaring red flag that we are living in a spiritual dark age. You know, we fundamentally are ignorant to some of the most basic principles of human existence. Now, there is something to be said, however, and this is where a lot of times language fails, because we have to conflate different meanings and nuance with the same words. A part of, not even part of, the driving force of anthroposophy, of spiritual science, of spiritual development, period, is purification. It is becoming more loving, becoming more virtuous, becoming more good, you know? And so there is something, however, to be said about, you could say, worthiness, deserving, when you recognize that by becoming more virtuous. In anthroposophy, it's called the anthroposophic waltz. And the rule is that you take 3 steps in terms of sheer dedication to truthfulness, beauty, goodness for every 1 step that you take in know-how. Okay. If you do that, you are therefore more deserving or worthy of, which in reality is just ability. You have the ability now more to receive more light or grace, more joy, more exalted states of emotion, because on a physics level, you are more like that. There's a similarity there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I also just want to note, this is that right there at the end part of that is very much like an IG clip. Just if you want to,
girl,
put that into thoughts.
You keep telling me, because
Yeah.
you know how helpful
That's a
that
big
is?
conversation. Deserving, worthiness, that's all in that like realm of manifestation. Like, you know, it fits into that plug.
Yeah.
Just in terms of a marketing thinking thing.
From the bottom of my
does.
heart, I appreciate that.
It does.
Because
It connects that. It attracts that. Someone who really wants that message, but still like are still getting the manifestation message, because that language all lives together right now.
yes, and those are the people I'm trying to reach.
Yeah.
Because that's what, you know, like I said last time, one of the last classes, like I started to tear up because it breaks my heart. Because so many of those people are really trying to do the best they can to create the life that they want and be good and have the things they want and improve their situation. And it kills me that, you know,
Yeah.
that it's having a counter, what is the counter effect? Counterintuitive effect. But yeah.
Yeah, that was like really clearly put for sure. Got it. So maybe I also missed this. Sorry, Q. I don't, do you want to jump in? Like, I feel like you
Oh,
asked us questions.
no, 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 please. I'm very much enjoying this exchange.
And again, maybe I missed this in like someplace, but so joy and like happiness are, we're grateful for it because it's given, right? Why is it given? Like what's the exchange? Like, or is there even an exchange? Maybe there's no exchange, but to why it's, you know, it's given just to
Why?
be given.
That's a great question too. I love it. So this gives me an opportunity to go right back to this word that I keep using, embedded. Okay, so you can think about it in terms of phases of understanding, because this is a huge paradigm shift for everybody, basically, like myself included, to think about things this way. And so the first way that we kind of have to wrap our heads around it is the closest conceivable thing to a gift. Like, we're being given something. And so the natural, of course, and most logical question is, well, then why then? Is it random? Did I, like, what's the protocol here? So the next kind of phase of understanding what's actually occurring here is hidden in this keyword embedded. I really want you to consider that we are living inside, we are living extensions of these beings. We are embedded in them, in their mind, in their body. We are living inside of them. Okay? So, there are, just like what I'm saying with karma, that there is a magnitude of complexity that at a certain point is beyond our comprehension at this point of development for humanity. But there is a way to sort of reckon with it a little bit. One, I think, is just kind of a continuation of your first question. If you are more like an angel, you are going to feel more like an angel, because those qualities and you being embedded within them can compound more frequently. They can resonate. There is a blooming resonance. Think flower of life here. Okay. There are also situations that, which is why I included this piece in a lecture on karma, there are situations in which karma plays a huge role. And you'd have to know what is occurring on the karmic plane where some manifestation or emanation of this joy, this goodness, this exalted, pleasant, feeling is due a person. So, not deserving in the sense that you can trace do in terms of rightfully theirs, not by virtue of something that they have done, but simply rightfully theirs. I'm trying to rephrase it a couple different ways that I myself have personally reckoned with it. And one thing is for sure, at least in my experience, but it's definitely echoed in some of the literature. When you start to shift your perspective of positive experiences towards this kind of thinking, there is a sort of recognition that you don't understand, but you feel. And the best way I can describe it is if you've ever been in a situation where you know something is right and has nothing to do with the data about the situation, whether it's you meet a person and you know that you're going to be really close friends, or that you can trust them, or you go to a location and you just feel suddenly it's a rightness. It's a feeling of harmony and truth that is literally impossible to feel alongside joy and happiness without this kind of understanding. So again, to reframe, it's not random, there is order to it, the lot of which is mysterious by virtue of the order of mystery. I know this sounds extremely paradoxical and convoluted. But you've got to consider the fact that these beings, especially when you're talking about the seraphim, the cherubim, the highest order of beings in the universe, in the cosmos, the magnitude is, we cannot even comprehend it. And so I would say, lastly, finally, the final thing, it is in the gratitude and the practice of understanding this as the truth that you come to know in a biblical sense, as in like intimately in your body, but not in your mind, because it's beyond what your mind can understand. Why? But it is not a mental why. It is just an all over bodily feeling of recognition. That's really the best way I can try to do that justice.
I think I got it.
It's a doozy.
Yeah. I do think one of the things that like I didn't really process was, I guess the way I noted it was like, they are not of you, you are of them. Like this embedding, like sort of, I'm like, oh, okay, that feels less like a need for an exchange. I don't know if that makes sense out loud, but in my mind, that makes sense. Like if it's like, oh, okay, well that there's no need for an exchange because of that already set relationship, I guess. Or
the embedding, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
You hit it on the head.
There's no,
I mean, we in there. So what's actually being exchanged?
There's no reason. There's no like why of an exchange. There's it makes sense that there's an order, but that there's not like a why, I guess.
Yeah,
sort of
it is. I think the closest thing that we can really, conceive about it is that it is symptomatic is not a great word, but it's the result of a closeness of those beings to you. And immediately people are going to be like, they're reaching their hand down, like, but the closeness, when you think about the closeness of it in a metaphysical sense, because you are literally in them. The closeness is a it's a resonating effect, you know, it's a kind of a simultaneous outward blooming. And the reason why it has this extinguishing power is because it can temporarily cut you off from a visceral kind of awareness of, you know, the opposite, the pain and suffering and the karma that you came here to reconcile, and the more grounded aspects of life, the fact that you were on earth. And so much of why you are here is because you are on earth, and they are not. They're not on earth. So joy and happiness are, it's not that they are not earthly, or else they wouldn't be able to be experienced by earthlings, but it is more of the heavens than it is of the earth. And it's very important. It is very important that we understand that we are here on earth, and we accomplish what we need to do on earth, and not spend more time in the higher worlds than here on earth, because there's plenty of time for that when you die. But you're not dead. You're here on the earth. So, you know, yeah.
I feel like my brain has other questions that I can't turn into a question quite yet.
That's fine. That's
So-
fine. I mean, that's too, you know, you're welcome. That's what that Telegram
Yeah.
chat's for too. If you're, this stuff smells so good. Sorry, I'm like, yeah. This little fragrance spray is made by monks. Like, makes me so happy. I'm like, monk vibes. Yeah, I'm a bit delirious, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to process. And you know, if you ever want, you know, the offer stands in terms of, you know, reading material or anything like that, can certainly, you know, a lot of how I build the lecture is I will handwrite word for word things from anthroposophical texts, and then below that I'll either cross things out, write my own words. Sometimes I'll leave it if it's just brilliantly worded. Why am I going to change it? But it helps me to check how much I know this well enough to try to impart it or share it with somebody else, you know. And so there's a lot of continuity in the way that I'm phrasing things, and, you know, Steiner's lecture materials too. It's, you know, it's the same kind of phrasing and things like that. I'm wondering, did either of you guys try the laser beam?
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
I tried it twice. Tried it last week on Sunday, and then again this morning.
Did you
On
notice
that,
anything?
I'm woefully behind on my assignments, but that's definitely a strong intent for me tomorrow. Like, I'm taking off work, because last week I was traveling a lot, so between that and missing the week before, tomorrow is dedicated specifically to catching up on all that. By the way, and I'm gonna start doing this more handwritten, in notes, because I had the same problem as you did with the note taking. So, like, for example, the aura exercise, like, I scribbled out the instruction. I regret that woefully, because I cannot fucking read it, which was also one of the reasons why I didn't get it complete, because I didn't know what the hell I wrote on the paper.
Oh my God, I feel so seen.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that kind of bummed me. I was like rolling through Telegram, like, damn it, did they write it somewhere or something? Because I don't put it on this paper and I didn't have the recording.
I
And
know that
yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
I know it.
So I'm going to kindly ask you to uh maybe leave me a voice note or just rephrase that for me because it's just sitting there in Sanskrit.
The instructions for the aura and the telling, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, girl,
Yeah.
yeah, ain't no sweat. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, man, I can totally
um,
do that.
that would be wonderful.
Let me write
Uh,
that down now. I'll forget it.
so Serena, how'd it go?
The aura,
The laser,
so
the
the laser. So I should have. I think I journaled, but I don't have it now. So it's one of my other notebooks. I'm a 8 trillion notebook person. Um, One thing I noticed about both though that I remembered when I did it today was, so it's sort of like laser beaming me out at the end, bringing your energy back in. The energy back in was very challenging for me. And I thought because I was like kind of stressed out last week, but then this week I was really calm and it still was a bit like it it just like felt like it just wasn't happening. Like I could like it wasn't the sensation of feeling my energy out, I could like really feel, which I think in general I can sometimes. But to bring it back in at the end was like a non-existent feeling for me. Like it was in my mind, but I could tell it wasn't in that same place of when I can like bring it all together and out, if that makes sense.
That
So
makes perfect sense.
I thought that was really interesting in both. Because again, first time I kind of wrote it off is like I was just really kind of emotionally at a high and not in a good way last week. So I was like, okay, that's where you're at right now. But this week I feel a lot more like centered and grounded. And even still, I was like, oh wow, that was interesting. It's still you know what it is? It's like it fades.
That's what
It's
it
like
should
it's
feel
like
like.
out and then it's like like
That's what it should
all
feel
done.
like, darling. You're
All
doing
done.
it. That's exactly how it should feel.
Oh, okay. Because I
Like
thought I'm like
virtually,
suck it back in, and I'm
you're
like, so
yeah,
it's like
you're expecting
gone.
like a similar feeling to when you shoot out the beam.
Yeah,
But when you pull it back, it should basically feel how you feel normally.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was. Oh, okay, yeah, because it
Yeah.
just that's what it was. It was more of like this dissipation behind it, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I was like, well, that's not in. That's more just like, okay,
Here we are.
here we
Yeah.
are again.
Anticlimactic.
Yeah,
If it doesn't feel anticlimactic and you do feel like if you start to feel if you pull your energy back in and you feel like your nervous system is very activated or you feel like kind of I don't know like manic, not necessarily manic, but if you
yeah,
feel a surge basically of energy, then you should keep pulling it back in because that's more indicative of a kind of a discrepancy in your energy still being pretty projected outwards.
yeah.
So
Okay.
the fact that when you pull your energy back in, it kind of just feels like nothing. And so your mind's like, how do I know if I did it right? Ironically, that's how you know you did it right.
Okay.
That's a really good question.
All right. Yeah, because that was definitely my question from it. That I was like saving because I was like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. And I am curious if you wouldn't mind sharing either or both of the intents that you projected out with the laser beam.
I believe last week my intent was like I don't remember the exact words. Darn, I wish I kept that note. I brought like I'll put it exactly, but I had something to do last week, like calming my nervous system down. I felt like my nervous system was just like, yeah, it felt frazzled and kind of just everything was in here. When everything's in here, I know I'm like not in a great space and I need to just reconnect myself. And so that was a big part of it last week because it was a lot of me living my life in this part of my body last week, which didn't feel good or the week before, not last week. And so that was my 10. I think it probably, knowing my own wording, probably like regulate my own system. Because I was going to make it a thing. I think my mind always wants to make it like a thing. Like get X done today. Like my mind initially wants to be like, do this. And then I realized last time I was like, no, that's actually not what I need right now. I just need my system to like get to a calm baseline. And I can't remember what today's was. Today I was laying back. So this one I laid down. I didn't sit up. I've been trying to meditate sitting up recently, which is like just a personal thing I've been trying to do as opposed to laying down.
That's good. Yeah.
Difference.
Especially for this. You definitely want to be sitting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't remember, because I was like down. I did like get up and roam around and then lay down and do it. So I was awake for sure. Oh, I think today was definitely, actually, yeah, today was still very like felt a bit more task oriented, because I wanted to make it on like cleaning up my space. That was like the initial thought I had for today. So like clean up my physical space, like, because that's been something on my mind. Like, clean my physical space. That's one of the things that make me feel calmer, more centered. And then it turned into more like, again, I wish I did today. I didn't write down the wording. It did have to do more with like, not doing what I can, not like do your best, but it was like, not doing your best, but almost like do what I'm gonna do, right? With great intent, but also not without expectation. I had a saying at the moment.
Yeah.
Can't remember the saying, but it was more, I'm like the feel of that, because I know I always start with a task. That's how I can bring myself to what I actually was thinking. It's always like, wants to do that. I'd be like, you need to do this, go do that, focus on that.
Like trust,
but it was
your capability kind of thing.
Yeah, or trusted like what you're gonna do today. Like, not like, okay, you want to get this done, okay. And so your intent is like to be, because sometimes my mantra for myself is like, work fully, but graciously, which to me translates to like, I want to work fully and work as hard as I can, but also be generous with myself, because then I'll set expectations and I'm not generous with myself and I'm all frustrated and like, what's the damn point? Because none of it matters that much. So it was similar to that today. Like, an example was like, I didn't clean the whole space. I just cleaned this one space really well.
That was my next question. Did you see any results?
I did. I like organized some mail that I really need to organize. I went through some like paperwork, like simple stuff. I cleaned out my wallet. Like, I cleaned off, like, I didn't try to clean up the whole space. I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna clean this corner the way I really wanted clean. Instead of doing the like, okay, well, everything looks like good enough. I was like, no, but this is perfect. The rest might be hell. But this is perfect.
Fuck yeah, dude. Know that vibe so hard.
So so it did set my tone to kind of like manage things in that way. Like,
that's awesome. That is really, really nice.
Like, even being late to this and not saying, like, that's one of those things where,
because you weren't even late, which is so funny.
I know, but I was like, it's funny. I wish I said before, I don't care about time at all. Like, I don't believe in it, but I've taught myself to care about time because it's important to other people. And one thing I do value is the happiness of the people around me. So if other people value it, I'm willing to make adjustments, and for me, time is one. And so now it's made me very mindful of time, because I know it's something that creates frustration and like angst in other people. So I'm like, always like, oh, I said I was going to do this on time and now I'm not doing it. And so I was like, oh no, but I was like, you know what? Just message them. You're going to go get your food. It's it's gonna be fine. Like, because if you don't get that damn food, you're really not gonna be happy later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That grace and forgiveness and self-love is,
yeah, I'm like,
it's in there. It's
we're just
working.
doing this. We're just doing this, and this is gonna be good. So yeah, that was definitely, it definitely probably played out in my swimming lesson also.
Good.
My beginning very anxious swimming lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Mhm.
I appreciate you. First of all, I appreciate you for your punctuality. Hey. That's, I mean,
I'm
in all
trying.
honesty, I really do appreciate that. Because like, you know, if a lot of the time like everyone showed up late, then it's like puts me in a pickle.
Mhm.
So I do really appreciate that. But also I appreciate you sharing, you know, your
Yay, good.
experiences. It's very interesting and really helpful.
Happy to
Yeah.
share.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Q, I'm excited for you to do it.
I know.
Hear about
No,
your
I'm on
experiences.
it. I'm like, tomorrow is all about getting grounded. You know, I've been up in the air, I've been flying around quite a bit. So that's going to be the first order of business in the morning.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, do it in the morning. Gotta do it
Yeah,
in the morning.
fresh
Mhm.
with the damn dew and my cat demanding his breakfast.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, Q, I will send you that voice note, or I'll put it in the Telegram tomorrow. But tonight I will send you guys your new aura for the week.
Okay.
Okay. And I like, some part of me has been like holding myself back from being like, okay, the first person to participate in the telling is gonna get some prize. I don't know what the fuck it is.
Okay, then
But
I
I'm
already
like,
win because I sent one in.
you did?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Run.
You already have a
When?
winner and you didn't even know it.
Run. I get it, okay? Right now.
Yeah.
Don't put prizes out, okay? I'm like a prize girl. If you offer something free, I'm like the first one at the door. It could be like a pen. And I'm like, guys, they're giving out stuff. We better get there.
Oh my God. Oh, you're so adorable.
I love it. Yeah.
When did, oh,
Never
shit,
take
I need
you
to
to
turn.
Costco.
Hmm?
Never.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. Oh
Like
my
those
God.
places are my jam.
I see. Oh my God.
I came to get a toothbrush. I'm staying for everything else.
One thing you gotta know about Raina, okay?
Yeah, I'm staying for everything.
She gonna get those prizes.
Listen, don't go any place with you where there's gift bags. I have gone places with people and everybody's like, Rita, can you stop talking about the gift bag? I'm like, everybody give me your card. I'm getting
I
all of
love
the gift
that.
bags.
I love
I'm
that.
like, I want all of our gift bags.
I love
I don't even
that
know what's in it,
too.
but I want my damn gift bag. If you don't have my gift bag, I'm good and pissed.
I love that. About being bestowed things. You're a happy recipient, okay? A happy recipient.
I
I love
love that. That's a
that.
good way to be.
I am like, look at these pieces of paper. I'm gonna read later. I'm thrilled.
I bet you always taking those fucking free like writing pads and pens from the hotels.
Oh, always.
Sunglasses.
Yeah.
I have soaps galore in my
Oh yeah.
suitcase. I'm like, I'm gonna need
Already
this.
know.
Today. I'm like, girl, you
The
did
warm
not
cookies at the Hilton. Run me my cookie.
Yes.
And
Running
I
my
am
cookies.
listen, kid yourself and don't give it to me. I am like, I'm not. I'm like very annoyed. I'm perturbed. I'm like, excuse you. Where is my stuff?
I love that you love that you claim it. You know it. That's it.
Like, I'm here for the stuff.
Oh my God. Like,
So
that's brilliant. That's just,
yeah.
hello. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
When did you do it? Is
I
there a
did it. I did it
notification?
today.
Oh, you did? Okay, so I
Yeah.
didn't miss it. Okay.
I just told
Okay.
myself because something. I think it was was it last week or another one where you were talking about aura, our last lecture group
I think
together,
so.
and you were
Yeah.
saying like how, and it really resonated with me about like it's just doing the thing. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
and I always know, I know that, like, I know, because I think about fitness. Like, I get that in terms of taking care of my body. When I'm not in it, I'm in it. And then when I decide to do it, I'm like, this sucks. But I always just get into it because I know.
Yeah, it's just a
And so
thing.
yeah, it's just a thing. Like, and then I'm like, okay, here we are. It's what I'm doing. And I thought today, I said, I don't know what to talk about in this. Like, I know what to talk about and then tell it, but I don't really feel like it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. So PS, I literally have a hair towel on.
Oh my God, this is
And I was
better
like,
than I could have imagined.
I was like, record. This is when she's getting it. I was like,
That's, I mean, beyond like that's like A++ extra credit. Like
And
that
then-
is, you knocked it out of the fucking park, yo. Seriously, I just,
Yeah.
fabulous.
I literally started with like, I'm just doing this because, we just have to do the thing. And then I just go into whatever I talked about.
However you get in.
Yeah.
However you get in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and nobody can tell you didn't do it. That's the thing.
Yes.
Mhm.
That is
Well,
my
that's very
lesson in life, I
exciting.
think. Actually, one of my lessons in life is just do the thing.
Oh, I feel that.
Don't wait till it's not a ready thing.
Yes, we're never ready for what we're meant to do. Never ready.
Never ready.
Yes, well, that's so exciting. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. It's so cool to see this thing come to life.
Something waiting for you.
Yay, I've got a little present. Yay, yay.
Yeah. I'm excited to see if people want to talk about their auras, like,
I
if it's
hope
something
so.
we could talk about them, because I'm curious what people do
Yeah.
compared to what I've done, or things that like I thought, ooh, that's scary, and then maybe other people did some,
That's so
I'm
it's really
curious.
interesting you mentioned that because spoiler alert, basically the rest of the lecture portions of the course, and it really was kind of supposed to start before this point, but because like I was like, no one's really doing the aura, so I've got to do something different. But it was supposed to be like much shorter lectures, more conversation. And so we'll see how that goes, but that's that was the original conception, because the rest of the series is it's a lot about art.
Interesting.
So yeah, which is just a really great conversational foundation for real life conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. So I look forward to that immensely with you guys. Yes.
I will also, actually, I probably should just type this in Telegraph, but we're already here. So the last class is of September. I can't make it.
Oh no.
Yeah, I will be in Greece by then, and it'll be like 1 a.m. So, and if I'm up at 1 a.m., I'm on like a boat trip weekend, I will be very drunk. So,
oh yeah.
Like if I'm up at 1 a.m. and I get on there, tell me go to bed.
Yeah.
Like,
completely disrupt the whole damn class.
yeah.
No, ma'am.
Just go to bed.
Go drunk, happy ass off the phone.
Which will sadly not be the first time I've done something like that. So I have done it at Soul Cycle.
Oh my God. Oh, the
I wanna
real Reina.
Yeah. I put fitness above everything else at that point in my life. I went to brunch. Everybody's like, where you go? I was like, I gotta go to my Soul Cycle class.
No, you not.
Yep. I walked right to the class very drunk.
Oh my God.
But
I pretended to ride my little heart out.
little heart. I love the effort.
I was like, yep. So it won't be the first time, but I did learn my lesson. So,
I want to hang out with Raina. You're nuts.
I know.
I'm
I
like,
think
guys,
about that
let's just go work out. It's fine. Let's just go do the separate. Everything's fine. It's gonna be fine.
It's called the tequila sweats.
Yeah. I'm always like, we're gonna win. I'm very good for that too. I'm like, we're gonna win. We're the best. I've been in groups where I'm like, guys, we're the best. I swear. Look at us. We're killing it. And then they come over like, you're the worst. You're in last place. And I was like, oh, sorry guys. I really thought we were the best. Maybe we're not the best, but I really thought we were the best.
Oh my
Oh my God. I want you on my team for everything.
Yeah,
like we
no,
need that.
Monkey squad.
That's definitely happened.
Whole time.
Yep, that's happened more than once to me also, where I've encouraged my group to believe we're the best. And then they're like,
Hey, you never
no,
know.
no, you're not the best, actually. You might be the
Not by your measurements,
Yeah.
but by ours is another
Yeah,
story.
I was like, guys, we're killing it. They're like, yeah, we are. I'm like, yeah.
We have
No.
gotten like literally nothing correct, but
Nothing.
we are killing
Literally.
it. Okay.
I was at a soup kitchen and they even told us we were bad. They were like, you guys are not very good at this. And I was like, sorry, guys.
Not-
I thought we were doing a good job.
Brain.
They were like, you're not moving fast enough. You're not doing it the way we said.
Brain
And
up.
I was like, guys, look, we're like such a good team.
We're killing it.
Aw.
They were
Oh,
like,
you're the engine that could.
yeah. So
So
that man came
sweet.
over and was like, what are you guys doing over here? I was like,
All right,
Yeah.
y'all. I hang up on y'all. I gotta put in my billing before 10.
Okay, well, I love you guys.
yeah.
I'll see you next week.
Can't wait for next week.
Bye.
Have a good night.
night.
Bye.